Hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar from the ICR, organized by the ICR Facility. It's 3 o'clock now, so we will be starting the webinar. Our host today is Cathleen Tobin, so I'm leaving the floor to her.
Thank you, Yasmine, and welcome everyone today. We're excited to be here to share out trends identified in a recent study on gender finance in development finance institutions in the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific Nations. Today we'll be showcasing strong examples of gender finance and women's economic empowerment from the African region. Some housekeeping before we begin is a couple of things to know. First is that this webinar is being recorded. There will also be simultaneous translation available in French. If you would like to listen and interact in French, please choose the language button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. We're looking forward to an active discussion with the panelists after their presentations, and so please do put your questions in the Q&A so that we can see them and address them and bring them up. We'd like to begin. Actually, I'll begin by framing this a little bit. Today's webinar is organized by the ICR Facility, which is a technical assistance facility to improve the business environment. The ICR Facility is co-funded by the European Union, the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the British Council. It is implemented by 4 European agencies: GIZ, the British Council, Expertise France, and SNV. And to kick us off today, we are joined by two speakers who will be sharing their welcoming remarks. The first is Escipión Oliveira Gomez, who is the Assistant Secretary General in Structural Transformation and Trade for OACPS, which is the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. Escipión is with Joanna Kahiluoto, who is the Policy Officer of Women's Economic Empowerment with DG INTPA in the European Commission. So I turn the floor over to our 2 speakers for the welcome remarks.
Yes, in my country and region, we have chivalry. So I will kindly ask Joanna to start.
Thank you, Escipión. And good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from the European Commission side. As Kathleen mentioned, I'm from DG INTPA, so DG International Partnerships, from the European Commission, and I'm from the Unit E2, where we focus on private sector development and trade. And I am privileged to be focusing specifically on women's economic empowerment. I work together with Miguel, that many of you know, as well as Escipión and the whole ICR team, especially now with the enhanced focus on women's economic empowerment. So I'm very happy to be here today and express our strong support for today's discussion on gender finance. I personally loved reading the report, and I would recommend it to everyone here today. Now, this topic is important. It's an important part of the discussions on investment climate, on development finance, and on private sector development in general. We already know that women lack access to finance and that they make the majority of the unbanked people in the world. I think the number is somewhere around 1 billion unbanked women globally. So this means issues for economic growth, for economic development at the country level, but it also means that there is this untapped market opportunity for the development financial institutions and for the financial institutions in general. There's a whole market segment that is being underserved. Now, at the same time, as we see from the report, in order to change this and to bridge this gap and to actually reach women, we need to be intentional. We need to actually make some changes. We need to make some plans to reach more women customers. So from the EU side, we've we are trying to be intentional. We've adopted a EU Gender Action Plan, which is our framework to be more intentional and to actually bridge some of the gender gaps. And this includes the gap in investment. So we have set actually an objective of having 85% of all of our actions having some objectives on gender equality. And as I mentioned, this includes also through investment. So we're trying to support on our side to help the different partners to work towards investments that reach and empower women. So we are really happy to see that the different DFIs in the ACP region are actually being very intentional and are showing the way on gender finance, as well as on finding different better ways to better serve women. So we are delighted to work together with the ICR Facility and with the DFIs here today to push this agenda forward and together with the OACPS and to learn from each other, to look for inspiring examples and to support the efforts of the financial sector to improve their practices and for finance to reach and support women. So I hope that you find the examples here as inspiring as I did, and I look forward to continuing working together to support women's economic empowerment. So I'll hand over to Escipión. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Pour équilibrer, je vais parler en français. Je ne sais pas combien de francophones il y en a, mais pour moi, tant le français que l'anglais sont des langues extérieures. Donc, vous m'excuserez pour les fautes que je ferai. Donc, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas les OACP, on est l'Organisation d'États d'Afrique, Caraïbes et Pacifique. Et on regroupe aujourd'hui 79 pays de toutes ces régions. Moi-même, je suis des Caraïbes, de la République dominicaine, et je suis extrêmement heureux d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. J'ai envie d'apprendre et échanger avec vous. Et notre organisation a été créée en 1975 et nous sommes notre secrétaire général est M. Chicotti d'Angola. Nous travaillons d'une façon très proche de nos pays et on est privilégié d'avoir une relation longue et soutenue avec l'Union européenne, et une relation qui était positive pour tous les deux groupes et qu'on espère qu'elle puisse continuer pour des années à venir. L'Union européenne et l'OACP se sont mis d'accord pour appuyer le secteur privé parce qu'on considère que c'est beaucoup mieux de donner à une personne un poisson que l'apprendre à pêcher que de donner un poisson à une personne. Donc, ça, c'est l'esprit qui conduit tous les 20 programmes d'appui au secteur privé qui sont en exécution actuellement. L'Union européenne et l'OACP ont mis à part 600 millions d'euros pour aider le secteur privé. Et ces 600 millions d'euros sont implémentés à une stratégie qu'on a adoptée ensemble en 2015 et qui cherche à appuyer tout ce qui est le climat d'affaires, dont l'ICR travaille surtout sur le climat d'affaires, mais nous aidons aussi à des organisations intermédiaires, dans ce cas-ci, les banques de développement comme vous-même. On essaie de vous aider directement, comme ce programme aussi touche. On aide directement des petites et moyennes entreprises avec des autres programmes dans lesquels on donne de l'assistance, même parfois des donations à des petites et moyennes entreprises. Et finalement, il a l'accès au financement à travers plusieurs programmes spécifiques comme les fonds d'ABC, comme Boost Africa, qui ont exécution et dans lesquels on travaille avec la Banque européenne d'investissement et la Banque africaine de développement, entre autres, et bien sûr avec les institutions européennes de financement regroupées dans ETFI. Donc, comme vous voyez, nous avons un grand portefeuille dans vos services, mais ce portefeuille ne peut pas fonctionner sans vous. Donc, on est vraiment très fiers de pouvoir partager les expériences d'aujourd'hui avec vous sur ce qui est le financement aux femmes. Et on est très content de l'appui que ICR nous donne. Il faut dire que ICR, c'est un exemple d'un programme exécuté avec plusieurs partenaires. Comme a dit Kathleen au début, on est financé ou aidé par les Allemands à travers GIZ et le ministère de développement, par le Royaume-Uni, par la France et par l'Hollande, les Pays-Bas. Donc, c'est un programme qui a beaucoup d'expertise, mais qui n'est rien sans l'appui direct et les choses que vous, les banquiers d'affaires, pourrez vous nous dire. On a eu le privilège de participer à un exercice semblable hier, avant-hier, tard dans la nuit avec le Pacifique et les Caraïbes, et des choses comme la propriété de la terre sont sorties comme un problème sérieux pour les femmes. On a aussi parlé beaucoup de propriété intellectuelle, comment est-ce qu'on peut protéger la propriété intellectuelle à un moment donné, d'aider à des femmes entrepreneurs à développer leurs affaires, et des choses assez simples aussi, comment est-ce qu'on pourrait aider aux femmes, aux employés aux femmes d'affaires, comment est-ce qu'on pourrait l'aider à garder leurs enfants pendant qu'ils travaillent. Donc, ce sont des choses parfois très complexes à très simples, et des solutions ont été discutées dans le cas des Caraïbes et Pacifique, et j'espère qu'aujourd'hui, on touche certaines de ces choses et qu'après, on puisse aussi avoir un échange entre le Pacifique et les Caraïbes et l'Afrique aussi, de façon à nous enrichir les uns et les autres. Et je voudrais vous dire que dans la coopération ACP Union européenne, ce qui nous guide, c'est essayer de réduire et, si possible, éradiquer la pauvreté. Et tout ce que vous faites conduit vers cela. Et je crois fermement qu'en aidant aux femmes, en aidant que dans nos pays, surtout dans les miens, sont généralement les chefs de ménage, on aide toute la population entière. Donc, le travail que vous faites va aider à notre institution d'accomplir leurs rêves, que c'est réellement réduire la pauvreté dans nos pays à travers une participation et une discussion comme on a aujourd'hui. Donc, je vous félicite pour votre travail. Je vous remercie pour nous faire confiance, et on reste à votre entière disposition à Bruxelles. Et la dernière chose pour vous dire, c'est que les OACP et mon chef en particulier, le secrétaire général Chicotti, prend la parité des genres très accord. En fait, quand il a choisi son cabinet, il a exigé qu'on soit moitié femme, moitié homme, et lui-même inclus. Donc, je suis un des peu des mâles qui travaillent à secrétaire général Chicotti. Et on est très fiers de pouvoir aider dans ce sens-là. Les représentants d'Afrique sont des femmes, dont la chef d'administration chez nous, c'est une dame de Ghana, la chef de financement pour le développement, c'est une autre dame de Tchad, et la personne qui s'occupe de tout ce qui est environnement est une femme de Fidji. Et donc, on est à votre service. Et je vais mettre mon email au chat, et on espère continuer sur le bon travail que fait ICR, et féliciter Stéphanie Kahn, Sarah Weiß et Yasmine Galloul pour le bon travail qu'ils font tout le temps, et définitivement Joanna et son équipe, Miguel et Paz, qui nous aident à nous développer. Donc, désolé pour être si long, j'arrête de parler en anglais, je pense que ça a été plus vite, mais je vous souhaite un bon séminaire. Malheureusement, je ne peux pas rester longtemps parce que j'ai un comité de pilotage du programme de financement, et je vais vous laisser en quelques minutes, mais on va regarder l'enregistrement. Et on vous remercie pour votre participation.
Thank you so much to you both for your comments and your organization's commitment and passion for the cause, really, as we try together collectively and collaboratively across institutions and different stakeholders to really begin to move the needle. So in terms of today's overview, I will take us through the trends in gender finance in the ACP DFIs, the overall trends that we found to kind of set the stage. And then we'll jump into our panel discussion with our three representatives, all from very different institutions in very different countries across Africa. We have Otlaarongwa Chilume. She goes by OT, so I will call her OT Chilume. She is the executive coordinator to the CEO at CEDA, which is in Botswana. Theresa Lawal is the head of product development and strategic alliances with the Development Bank of Nigeria. And Thembi Khoza is the gender programming manager with the Development Bank of Southern Africa. So we're looking forward to hearing from them today. And then we have Yasmine Galloul from the ICR Facility, who will then present their upcoming call for proposals before we wrap up. But first, to set the stage, a little bit about this study. So the study sought to identify DFIs at ACP with active gender finance or women's economic empowerment initiatives and showcase the good practices, to highlight challenges as well, and really start dialogue so that we could begin the conversation as more and more DFIs begin to think about how, if, when, where, with whom to begin to implement gender finance and women's economic empowerment initiatives. We looked at both internal policies like gender policies and strategies, as well as, and processes, as well as client-oriented activities, so end user activities. So both are included in the study. And one thing that you'll see, I think certainly from today and from the study, is that the range of approaches really differs. There's no one size fits all. And I think that is what can be inspiring about what came out of the research and from the stories that we'll hear from our panelists in this discussion. So today we're hoping to provide that platform for DFIs today in Africa, but across the ACP regions, to inspire peers to action, foster supportive networks, and begin kind of forming those bonds and those networks so that dialogue can be had and progress can be made, talking not only about the success stories, but also learning from the challenges that institutions face along the journey. To take us through the emerging trends, so there are several key trends that came out of this. And the first is that bluntly, gender finance and women's economic empowerment are not yet a priority for DFIs in the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific region. So of the very long list of institutions that we identified and researched, really only about 20% showed evidence of planning or implementing internal or external gender policies and programs. What we did see was that a number of those, I would say the majority of those in that 20%, are at the beginning stages. So we're seeing traction, we're seeing beginnings of planning, policy development, strategy development. So I think if we have, a look back in a few years, there'll be potentially a different story. But today we're in early stages. But that said, the topic really is beginning to gain traction. So we're seeing regional associations, including the Association of African Development Finance Institutions and the Association of Development Financing Institutions in Asia Pacific, both expressing that awareness that gender is becoming more of a focus, and they're actively looking to better understand the initiatives within their member base. For an example, AADFI, the African Association of Development Finance Institutions, recently held a joint workshop with the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, or AFAWA, on the topic. So, and they're also, AADFI is also integrating gender into their annual training program and beginning to include gender in initiatives, questions about gender initiatives in their annual member survey. So these things are really beginning to take traction as we see, and we're seeing it at the regional association level, as well as at, to some degree at the individual DFI level. Another thing that came out is that leap from awareness. So we're seeing the awareness now is building that, this is important. There are broad economic benefits in serving women, from, GDP growth at the country level to lower non-performing loans at the portfolio level. So that awareness is there. But the question that we see coming up pretty often is, where do we start? So what does the segment need? Which subsegments should we be looking at? And from an institutional perspective, the majority of women entrepreneurs are in the informal sector, which is considered relatively risky for reasons I think most of us are aware of. There's not a lot of data there. And so it's difficult to justify the investment on the DFI level. So that kind of leap from knowing that there's a benefit, there could be a benefit, to really kind of getting a sense of where to start is a chasm sometimes. And that's why I think our panelists today can really kind of talk about, how they got across that gap and sort of what some of the learnings were along the way. And we're seeing DFIs moving into gender for a variety of reasons, but one key influencing trend is that the multilateral banks and other financing DFIs are playing an active influencing role. There's motivation to attain the Sustainable Development Goals. There's an increasing focus on gender smart finance and investment, for example, through initiatives like the 2X Challenge. Multilaterals like the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Green Climate Fund, and Global Environmental Facility have all begun to outline gender-related requirements as a condition for their support and for receiving funding. And so these components, within agreements with DFIs are beginning to also move the needle and kind of build not only awareness but move some DFIs to action. So we're seeing that as a significant trend and kind of a key influencer, I would say, is the multilateral banks and other financing DFIs. And we did also see some success factors. We have noted some success factors at the DFI level for what really kind of the examples that we're seeing today and that we've also identified in the Caribbean and the Pacific. Some factors seem to be in place relatively consistently. They're not always in place for each institution, but they do play a role. And one is the strong link between policy development and implementation. So, we came across a number of institutions that had developed the gender policy, but may not have had the funding to implement it, or may not have had the internal resourcing to dedicate to implementing it. And so really having that link between, once that policy is developed, what is the implementation plan and what are the metrics, how can it be monitored, how can progress be assessed? That's a key piece. Another success factor that is sometimes, a big influencer, not always, but if there's a combination of this progressive national gender policy. So some of our panelists today are in countries with a very strong commitment at the government level around gender policy. And with that, their institution has a strong link between the DFI and the policymakers. So we'll hear from OT at CEDA about how that works well and how that, kind of close connection means that there's sort of one overall agenda across stakeholders, so to say, which can really kind of lead to stronger effects. And then one piece here that is really critical and so much more difficult often than we realize is the systematic capture and use of reliable sex disaggregated data. And so defining even what a woman-led or woman-owned business is critical, and having a similar definition across stakeholders, whether it's the government level, the National Statistics Office, the DFIs at the national levels, the regional DFIs. So kind of having similar definitions and agreement on what KPIs and criteria to track is a key factor as well, because once we have the data, then it's much easier to identify where kind of the opportunities are. And I think we may hear a little bit about that from Theresa at Development Bank of Nigeria today. So with that, I would say you've heard enough from me. I would suggest we move into our panelist discussion. We have OT Chilume, who is the executive coordinator to the CEO at CEDA in Botswana. We have Theresa Lawal, who is the head of product development and strategic alliances at the Development Bank of Nigeria. And we have Thembi Khoza, who is a gender programming manager at the Development Bank of Southern Africa, which actually Development Bank of Southern Africa has kind of a Pan-African mandate now. So we have, these three institutions. CEDA is in Botswana with a population of 3 million people. We have, Development Bank of Nigeria, the most populous nation in Africa. And then we have Development Bank of Southern Africa with a multi-country mandate. So it'll be interesting, I think, to hear these three perspectives. So with that, I would like to jump in and ask each panelist, we'll go one by one, to begin by giving a little bit of an overview of your organization, because they are quite different. And then letting us know what your DFI's approach is to promoting gender responsive financing and women's economic empowerment. So what's your approach, and what would you say have been some of your key accomplishments? What are the success factors? Why don't we start with OT? We'll go down the list here today to start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. As Kathleen has introduced, I'm OT from Botswana. I work for CEDA. CEDA is a DFI with the sole mandate of promoting entrepreneurship amongst SMMEs. So we were set up by government and started operating in 2002. And to date, we have a loan book of about over 2 billion pula. That will be, I don't know the dollar amount, but our rate is $1 is to 11.5 pula. So we have a loan book of over 2 billion pula. And in terms of gender mainstreaming, as Kathleen has already said, we work closely with government. We work towards promoting the government's gender mainstreaming agenda. And we report to the government on a monthly basis on efforts that we've been doing in order to meet the women's economic empowerment policy that's set by government. So we have a ministry that's just responsible for gender issues. And though we report to a different ministry as CEDA, but we also parallelly report to the gender ministry on issues of gender mainstreaming. And to show how serious we take gender mainstreaming in CEDA, the function of gender mainstreaming is based in the office of the CEO, and I'm the mainstreaming person. I'm the person responsible for gender issues in the organization. The reason why they're based in the office of the CEO is for quick turnaround in decision making. So we take these issues very seriously. That is why they are based right there at the top. And in terms of what we've been doing as CEDA to promote gender responsive financing and women and promoting women economic empowerment, I know most banks or most institutions would have specific products geared towards women, children, the youth and stuff. But at CEDA, we don't believe in, what can I say? We don't believe in ring-fencing women by defining them to a specific product. We believe that the best way to empower women is to make the environment conducive for them. So what we've noticed in our country is that the most impediment to access to finance by women is meeting collateral requirements from financial institutions. So what we've done, we have discounted security for women-led businesses. If you're a woman and you come to ask for financing from CEDA, you get flexible security conditions. If you don't have collateral, we can still assist you. This, however, depends on the risk of the project and the risk appetite of the agency from time to time. But what our basic rule is, if we had the last dollar in the bank and someone comes for funding, it's a man and a woman, they come at the same time, same business concept, and the man has security, the woman doesn't have security, we'll rather fund that woman. We want to disqualify her because she doesn't have security. So that's how we take gender issues so seriously. And just to add another thing, we realize that in our country, most women own informal entrepreneurs. They're in the informal sector. So we created products that are geared towards informal entrepreneurs. So these have really low requirements. We even go to the extent of offering these informal entrepreneurs training. And we have realized that out of our uptake, 81% of people who access our microfinancing products are women. And we train them, we mentor them. With some who are even illiterate, we have people there teaching them how to maintain books of accounts and stuff like that. So we go over and above just basic funding. We provide training and other business advisory services. And not just through funding, we are also visible in other areas of empowerment. We have initiatives such as the University Challenge, where we encourage young people from universities to come up with business ideas, and they come and pitch and win prizes and an opportunity to get funding for their businesses. So we said, in order to encourage the girl child, if the winning solution is from a young woman, we offer additional support. We offer training, we offer mentorship, and we even offer extra money as over and above the normal price that would be offered. I believe I'll say more as we continue with the discussions, but in a nutshell, that is what we are and what we are doing.
Thank you, OT. And so close alignment with the government agenda and creating a conducive environment for women to borrow. So those are the two kind of headlines I take from the many activities that CEDA is doing. Thank you for that. Theresa from Development Bank of Nigeria, let's hear about your DFI, its approach, and success factors. You might be on mute, Theresa. Okay, we'll give.
My apologies. Can you hear me now? Yes, I was on mute. Okay. Okay, so I was just saying, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Theresa Lawal. I work with the Development Bank of Nigeria as the head of product development and strategic alliances. So I'll just start by giving a brief summary about who we are, our operational model and things like that. So DBN is a wholesale development finance institution. So we are licensed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So wholesale means that, you know, I'll start by saying that our mandate is we're focused on providing access to financing to the MSMEs, basically alleviating the financing constraints that they face. In doing this though, our model is wholesale. So whilst we have a focus on the MSMEs, we don't deal directly with them. We deal with through financial intermediaries who we call our participating financial institutions. Currently, as we speak, we have almost 50 financial institutions that we've onboarded as an institution. It cuts across basically the commercial banks, the microfinance banks, other kinds of financial institutions that do basically have MSME mandates as well. And they have that focus on providing financing to MSMEs. So typically we'll deal with them, provide financing through them to the MSMEs. DBN started operations in 2017. Up until now, we have a total of about 482 billion naira that has been disbursed through 28 PFIs and to about 208,300 MSMEs. Actually, 371 is the exact number. To give a bit, this is about $1.2 billion if we did the conversion rate. For us, we are sector agnostic. So as a bank, we do not focus really on any sector. If there are MSMEs, we want to support them and provide, you know, the support that they require. However, we have some impact objectives. So we have some areas that we are a bit passionate about driving, more so than the other areas. So we have some sectors or segments that we basically are focused on supporting. So it cuts across like the real sector, of course, green and climate change. And then the segments we want to see a lot of focus on, you know, gender finance, youth also, and others. In doing this, we have a commitment to ensure that at the minimum, there is a certain requirement of funding that goes to women. We're passionate about ensuring that the women are empowered and they have the access to finance. In doing this, I would say that till date, as an institution, DBN has disbursed a total of about 62.5 billion. So if we did that, that would come to about approximately $150 million. The recipients of these came to about 138,000 167 women. In looking at this, in terms of the number, we see that this translates to about 65% of the total NBORA. So whilst we are sector agnostic, whilst we would want to support the men, because of our passion, we have about 65% of the NBORAs that are women. We have basically different ways in which we reach the MSMEs. So the first is that we have an on-lending facility. So through the intermediaries, we provide this funding that goes to the MSMs to basically increase their access to funding where funding is generally not available to the MSMs. In addition to that, we also have a credit guarantee, wholly owned subsidiary, who basically provides credit guarantees to women where there are collateral shortfalls. So not only do we have the access to funding through the on-lending window, then we also provide credit guarantees. And then there's of course technical assistance, capacity building. We're big on that. I would also kind of put this in to say that whilst we're doing this, our objective in trying to ensure that the women get a lot of funding, or the women get a lot of attention, we also kind of try to align our policies, our processes, and then we also have incentives to the banks just to get them on board and then to see that really they are getting the funding to the women. So part of what we have, so we have the technical assistance which we offer. So we offer through a consultant right now. I mean, we have some banks that are going through that process. It's being implemented on behalf of DBN by the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. What we really just try to do is to see how they can upskill their capacities to lend to the women. They are encouraged to do more, to be more innovative, and just to see that, there's that understanding that there's a lot to do in the space of providing funding to women. On the other side, also there's also technical capacity building that's offered to the MSMEs directly. So there's a program also that's run by DBN. Besides this, we also try to incentivize our PFIs. So yes, we have a mission, we have a vision, we have a mandate because we want to see more women get financing. But we also work through the finance institutions who are intermediaries. We want to also get them on board. So what we did was, in addition to the programs and the products and the offerings that we have, we put some sort of incentive-based programs, to encourage them further. Two of them, one we call the interest drawback, and the second we have like a service ambassadors program. So the service ambassadors program just basically encourages the PFIs to be like our ambassadors, to be like our voices within their respective PFIs. And part of what they're supposed to do is to fish out, the women who need financing, encourage an increase, in funding to women, because there are definitely certain parameters that we've put in place. And so they want to see that the women are, they're brought forward and they're getting funding. In addition to this, also the interest drawback is another incentive. So what happens is that as a PFI, when you lend to women, you get like, we'll call it a rebate on the interest. So whilst we may not be able to provide concessionary funding, because of course we're trying to be sustainable, but then this is a further incentive to see that they get this drawback, and it further incentivizes them, of course, if they know that there's this drawback option to get a rebate on the interest rate they want to lend to the women. I will go on, but I think I'll just stop at this. I think I'll just say that one of the key things is that the institution as a whole is passionate about lending to women. It's one of our core mandates, is one of the core goals. It's part of our strategic priorities as an institution. And everybody pretty much is on board, from the operations team to the legal team. Everyone basically understands that this is where DBN wants to be, and pretty much things that we try to do ensures that, we basically actualize this goal. And then I guess I'll just stop here for further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So for DB Nigeria, I'll ask you about your data collection later, I'm sure. But what I'm hearing is this kind of two-pronged approach. So you've got the funding, credit guarantee, and technical assistance for the MSMEs, but then you also take the positive route and incentivize your PFIs to disperse to women. And so it's kind of that two levers that you're pulling almost that it seems to have come together really very effectively with the numbers that you're sharing. 65% of your sizable portfolio has been dispersed to women-led MSME end users. So terrific. Thank you for that. And now we have Thembi from Development Bank of Southern Africa, which I'm sure we'll hear about a much different approach, more holistic approach, accountability. I'll let you kind of take it away and tell us a bit about your institution and the approach to gender finance and women's economic empowerment and your success factors.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen, and good afternoon. It's afternoon for me. Good afternoon,
yes,
everybody. My name is Thembi Khoza, and I am from the Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA in short. DBSA was established in 1983, and it is 100% owned by the government of South Africa. It was incorporated as a development finance institution under the DBSA Act number 13 of 1997. And this same act was amended in 2014. One thing that we need to mention is that whilst the DBSA is owned by the government of South Africa, we have a mandate that spans beyond the borders of South Africa. We promote, and that mandate is to promote economic growth as well as regional integration for sustainable development programs and projects in South Africa, the SADC region, as well as the wider sub-Saharan.
Thembi. Thembi, I think we've lost you.
I got muted.
Okay.
So should I start from the beginning?
No, we heard from Sadzi. So yeah, why don't you, just the last 30 seconds or so.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that whilst we have a mandate that spans beyond the borders of South Africa, we report to the Ministry of Finance in South Africa, and we therefore report to Parliament. And our oversight is conducted by National Treasury. And we exist essentially to advance development impact in Africa by expanding access to development finance and effectively integrating and implementing sustainable infrastructure development solutions. Now, the one thing that we've come to realize over the years is that as we finance infrastructure, there are specific challenges that are experienced by different agendas in terms of the businesses that we finance, and women are usually the ones that are vulnerable and on the lower end of the bargain in terms of what we do. So what we've realized is that women in both South Africa and the continent are disproportionately affected by deeply entrenched gender inequalities and a myriad of other systematic and structural barriers of economic empowerment. And this is even though women play a very significant role in terms of them being suppliers around infrastructure. They do this as wage earners, they do this as workers or employees, but also they serve as producers. Some of them serve as entrepreneurs, both informally and formally. And that means they are women-owned businesses and women-led projects, but still women, we find, are still at a disadvantage. And the one thing I need to also mention is that persistent gender disparities continue to place women at substantial disadvantage, even as entrepreneurs who make significant economic contributions to the economies where we finance infrastructure. So some of the key challenges that stand as barriers to women are huge capex requirements to development projects and high risk capital to develop feasibility studies for such projects. The other challenge that we've found really is a setback for women is lack of tangible or unencumbered assets or even collateral to secure loans. They don't always have meaningful balance sheets that they can borrow against. That's the reality of women. The other reality is around socio-cultural constraints where they play inter-own conflicts from juggling domestic and professional roles, which lead to delayed industry or professional registration and accreditations. For instance, if you look at it from the perspective of infrastructure, it takes a while for a woman to get registered or accredited as a practicing engineer or a practicing a quantity surveyor because of domestic issues that they face. And so for us, this has presented an opportunity. We've realized that there is an opportunity in really gender lens to take a gender lens approach in financing. And so what we do, what our approach is, maybe let me start about what we do. The DBSA essentially finances and delivers large scale infrastructure in key sectors of energy, ICT, transport, water and sanitation. And we also focus on social sectors, which would include social housing, education, as well as health. And I think that has now given light to what we do and how we do it, because I just felt I was just talking about women issues before I explained what we exactly do. So as I was saying earlier, we realized that women-owned or women-led businesses operate in very small infrastructure projects at a very lower quantum compared to men. So we also realized that our policies and procedures were also designed in a more of a gender-neutral manner. We were not deliberate about really focusing on ensuring that there was equal access to our financing. And so because of this, we embarked on a drive to examine relevant policies and procedures, as well as ensuring that we harmonize these processes and these procedures to ensure alignment in both our internal and external practices. Because for us, it doesn't help that we go out and we finance infrastructure in a gender sensitive manner, whereas our internal practices actually don't address gender issues, and our employees who go out and interface with the markets are not happy in terms of the gender issues. So for us, it's really focusing on both internal and external practices. So what we also have as a bank is we have cross-functional teams that have been deployed to redefine our lending and technical assistance processes. One, to include smaller projects, but two, to ensure that in terms of our sector strategies, we are gender sensitive. And this is actually aligned to our transition to a development impact and social change focus. And also one thing that is worth mentioning is that our gender mainstreaming program is aimed at facilitating infrastructure projects that from design to implementation, monitoring, evaluation, as well as audit and policies, really ensure that there is a focus on women and there is a focus on all other genders in between. Because when we talk gender, it's not just men and women. There are also people who don't see themselves as necessarily men or women. So we've tried to ensure that when we do our design, when we do our implementation, we take into cognizance the needs of such genders. So our program, our gender mainstreaming program, that is focuses on key strategic pillars. One, we focus on the investment pillar, and that is where we prioritize inclusive investments with a bias towards deals with women ownership, shareholding, as well as a focus on women empowerment. So that's our investment pillar. The second pillar is on strategies, policies, and processes, where we look at policy reviews and development, as well as harmonizing. This is both, as I said, internally and externally. When a deal comes through, we investigate and ensure that there is alignment and there is harmonization in terms of policies that the organization that's bringing the deal has already in place, and or policies that it requires to have that would address women specific issues or gender specific issues. The third pillar is capacity building and knowledge sharing, where we use a gender lens to influence practice in infrastructure financing and delivery. Because for us, it doesn't end with just financing, it's the actual delivery. And delivery is where we then focus on issues of impact. Because one thing we know is that at financing, projects can be presented in a manner that is compliant. However, when it gets to implementation, unless we have robust monitoring and evaluating mechanisms, we won't be able to measure the impact. We won't be able to even ensure that projects are adhering to that which they presented at the point when they were seeking funding. So for us, the delivery also is critical. And the last pillar is strategic partnerships. So for us, it is about creating a platform for debate. It is about creating platforms for sharing experiences and information with stakeholders, as we are currently doing with you now. It is really for us to learn together, to share what we've done and how we've done it. And perhaps to go into what has been our major accomplishment in doing the work that we do is that we've had the support of board, and that has been a huge incentive in that the whole gender mainstreaming program is driven from board level, and we have our CEO as the champion who is leading all the interventions. And we find that it works because it ensures that there is buy-in. But it's not just about buy-in, it's also about us really committing not on lip service, but on actual practice. Like we've had to, for instance, ensure that we collect sex disaggregated data, which shows the extent of the bank's investment in women-owned businesses is really a serious matter. But also it ensures that strategically, we have a key performance indicators in our business scorecard, which then translates into individual performances, as in those that are in the front line as well as those that are in the back office have had to find ways of ensuring that we've had to find ways of ensuring that they are measured on gender mainstreaming aspects of the work that they do. And as a result of that, we are beginning to find that everyone is realizing that they have a major role to play in ensuring that we are gender mainstreamed in our approach. So we've also developed how do I put this? We've also developed tools to collect data. And maybe to also mention that some of the tools are not necessarily developed by us, but they are adopted from other institutions. For instance, for us to ensure that from the beginning phases of a project, we set targets that speak to gender mainstreaming variables. We have a gender marker, which we adopted from the African Development Bank. And this ensures that the projects that we finance and have clear objectives around embedding a sustainable development and embedding gender mainstreaming in their operations. So we also do this to ensure that there is a bias towards ensuring that the needs and the interests of women are adhered to by all the projects that we are financing.
Thank you, Thembi. I am fascinated also by the Development Bank of Southern Africa's approach that's comprehensive in that very strong internal policy development, as well as gender mainstreaming throughout the entire project development process, and really embedding that gender lens throughout the organization. And when I think of accountability, you know, kind of having that monitoring and measurement, there's that adage of what gets measured gets done. And so, and it sounds as if you're seeing the results of that throughout the organization as well. So thank you for that. So we've had 3 examples of different approaches and the successes and what has worked well. And I do think it's also important to understand the challenges, because implementing anything new is difficult, and gender finance in many ways is kind of an unknown for most institutions. Where do we start? What do we do? What can go wrong? And so I'd love to hear just kind of quickly on, if there's one key challenge that each of you or your organizations faced, kind of what was it? If you're thinking of what other institutions might need to be ready for, or things that you wish you had known, that would be kind of I think useful for the room to hear as well. So why don't we go back to you, OT, and kind of hear about CEDA, and if there was any, if you've come across any challenges along the way that would be useful for others to hear about.
With us, the main challenge was getting women to come up and access our products and services. So what we've done, we went on a robust outreach program. We found that especially those in the rural areas were sort of like not eager or not willing to come forth and get funding for their businesses. Others would be worried that what happens if I don't pay? Are you going to repossess my assets and leave my children with nothing? So what we did, we embarked on a robust outreach program, public education program, where we went around the country educating women on funding and what we stand for, how we can assist, and what they tend to benefit. And we did this by engaging relevant stakeholders like the chiefs in the villages. We identified places where women gather, we go to them, we talk to them. And especially where we find that in places where we don't have branches or offices, a lot of women don't know about us. So we bought mobile offices. We travel through the country. I remember last year, before COVID, 2019, we covered over 200 villages where we were going around speaking to women, talking to social workers, reaching out to those that don't even have bank accounts. We showed them that, we don't just assist those with bank accounts or who can go to towns. We have started collaborations with commercial banks where we assist women who were previously unbanked to open bank accounts so that they can also benefit from other financial services, not just what CEDA has to offer. And we encourage them to save. And some, as they saw the benefits of being banked, having savings, that's when they came forth to apply for funding. And some, as I previously said, those that don't know the basics in terms of bookkeeping and just how to formally run a business, we offered free training to anyone who could come forth. And with the little knowledge that they got from us, then they started coming forth. And this, I can just point out that when we started in 2002, at the end of the financial year, we had only financed 46 women-led businesses. And now I'm proud to say, as at the end of the last financial year, we recorded 6,311 women-led businesses just in one financial year. And this, to me, is a true testament that whatever we're doing is working. And now, if you look at the multiplier effect of our funding, in our country, an average household has 4 people. We are a very small society, so an average household has 4 people. So you can imagine, with the majority of households being led by women, you can imagine what the multiplier effect is. If we are able to fund 6,311 women-led businesses, that means we are reaching more than 30,000 people in the country per annum. So we have realized that clearly women are ready, women are willing, they just need to be shown the way. And that's what we are doing at CEDA. We are educating them, we are showing them the way. And not just the women, we are also educating other stakeholders. Like I said, our relationship with commercial banks. As we fund and make these relationships with them, Some even end up taking loans from commercial banks and not from us, because now they have a credit profile. Because, you know, a bank can't touch you without a credit profile. So as we talk to the banks, as we relate with the banks, they are now starting to see that, okay, these people can be our customers. You know, they end up offering them other services, like I said, insurance services. If you have, and we do negotiate insurance packages for our micro entrepreneurs around. So yeah, that challenge, we managed to mitigate it. And now it's snowballing into something really great. And we're hoping that as we reach out to different quarters around the country, to different stakeholders, we'll be able to achieve so much more. And just our financial, oh, sorry, just to conclude, we are currently working on our plan for the year, on how now to reach, to grow our micro entrepreneurs. Remember, we started them with small loans. Now we are embarking on a strategy of how we can ensure that now they go for the big monies to grow their businesses.
That's a powerful example, because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a banker who said, well, there aren't any women. They don't come. We offer the products and they don't come. So therefore, it's not worth it. And you've just shown that there is some work involved. You have to go out and find them and show them the way, as you say, but going from 46 businesses to over 6,000, granted in a 20-year time frame, but that must have been very steady kind of cumulative growth. And so that terrific example. Theresa, what have you got from DBN? I'm sure you've had at least one small hiccup along the way that you'd like to share.
Yes, actually two. So the first is, I would say, so I'll just give you a bit of background. I didn't say this before now, but DBN was basically born out of basically a consortium development partner. So we have a mix of debt and equity from, you know, the World Bank, the AFDB, the EIB, you know, the KfW, AFD. And basically what it is that we have funding that we have received from our development partners, and we have to on-lend these funds. But the case with working the path of, you know, gender finance is typically the requirement is to have concessionary pricing, concessionary funding for the women in MSMs. But, you know, whilst for us as an institution, we have a passion, we're keen on driving and ensuring that, you know, everybody comes on board and recognizes the fact that we should provide funding to the women more so than the men, I would say. But, you know, we also have to kind of balance the aspect of sustainability. And so for us, sustainability is ensuring that, you know, we're still here, you know, years down the line. And so if we are giving concessionary pricing, how do we balance that? Do we market to inflation rates? Do we ensure that, you know, our pricing models are efficient to, you know, get the right pricing, you know, to the PFIs, of course, through the PFIs to the women. So basically balancing out the system, because we have a lot of PFIs approaching us. So in the conversation of trying to get everyone on board. So that's the first thing, you know, trying to get them all on board, you know. You see there are all that different positions in that curve, you know, for trying to, for gender mainstream. And you see that some people are doing more than others. But, you know, for us, it was a challenge trying to bring everyone to the table, because as much as, you know, we are working with them, we need to also, incentives was one of it, but we need to also let them understand that there is a reason why they need to go the route of gender mainstreaming. So doing that was a bit of a challenge, because we had to get everyone to at least a satisfactory level. So you have cases where, you know, people want to find, so why, you know, is it profitable for me? They're basically looking at the profitability, or
sure,
well, it's not the profitability, but, you know, they just don't have enough collateral, and I don't think I can deal in that space. So it's about, we have challenges trying to bring everything together and trying to ensure that we basically got everyone to see that there's a need. So if it was through the trainings, if it was through even helping in, all sorts of interventions from time to time, that was a little bit of a challenge. And then, of course, the aspect of sustainability, because we really couldn't, there was that low, that, we couldn't go that low in terms of the pricing. So ensuring that there was sustainability, and we had to kind of let them understand that, we have a commitment to this, but we also have to ensure that we're sustainable. And we need to also ensure that you are sustainable as an institution as well. So maintaining the balance between, between, promoting mainstreaming, a lot of advocacy, the incentives we had. We also have to, at every point in time, ensure that sustainability was key, because, everything we're about, even as an institution, is one of our core mandates is sustainability. So for me, these were really the challenges we had. So we had to kind of balance it out. We want you to go the route of, gender mainstreaming. We want you to do a lot in the space of women empowerment. But in the midst of all of this, we need to keep our eyes on sustainability, in doing this. So this basically what I would say was, our challenge. Well, in doing this also, we kind of try to open our minds to see other things. So it's also in the space of sustainability. So whilst looking at what you have, you see that you probably have to expand your horizons. You probably need to do more. You need to probably look for other interventions that you could leverage on to meet the demands of your PFIs in driving this. So I think this for me is a challenge, because it's just a moving train, and we just need to ensure that as much as we want to put it in the forefront, we need to ensure that sustainability is key in doing that. So for me, I would say these are the challenges we experienced. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Sustainability, it sounds like a very delicate balance, and one that's critical, or else, if you're not sustainable, what do you have, after the funding sort of changes focus. So the great example. And Thembi, tell us about Development Bank of Southern Africa. Have you hit any snags along the way, or any speed bumps that you would like to share?
Yes, thanks, Kathleen. We've had a number of them, but one that is really key for us is the fact that we work across a varied markets and varied business environments. And so one of the challenging things for us was to ensure that when projects do come through, there's a bit of standardization, and also ensuring that there is understanding of the local context. For instance, if you're going to be doing or financing a project in Ghana, the context would be different to doing financing a project in South Africa. So what that meant for us was we needed to incorporate a gender mainstreaming social safeguard standard as part of our assessment tools. So what that standard helped us with is really the understanding of in-depth local contexts. For instance, what we do is ensure that all investment projects that are undertaken, they include the environmental and social management plan, and that plan addresses the local environment and community context where the project is localized or located. It ensures that that plan ensures that we identify the drivers of marginalization of certain groups, because unless we do that, we might find ourselves having financed or projects or deals that would further marginalize people, and that is not in keeping with our vision, which is to improve the lives of people. So that's the one thing that we've done. And also the same standard ensures that community participation becomes key. So as part of this gender mainstreaming standard, we ensure that there is a communication participation plan that comes with any deal that is financed. And what that means is that we engage with local communities to build trust. Because you find that unless you do that, certain communities and stakeholders are affected by projects, and some are supposed to be participating meaningfully, but they never get an opportunity to do so. So the DBSA assesses the extent to which project sponsors support early and continuously support community engagement and build effective local community trust. So that's one of the things that we've done. And the other challenge was on issues around grievances, that you'll find that when you start at planning, at design, you might address issues, but as you implement, unless you are there all the time and you have structures that are on the ground, you will find that there would be grievances that we are not even aware of. So we've had to create a grievance mechanism to address conflict at any locality where a project is implemented. And this is really to ensure that citizens, wherever we are financing projects or we are delivering infrastructure projects, have access to justice to address grievances and have a voice to secure to ensure that their issues really are taken care of, but also that makes us an accountable corporate citizen. And it also ensures that we secure our social license to continue operating in the localities where we finance projects. So for us, this has been one of the major challenges that we have addressed through the gender mainstreaming social safeguard standard. But of course, the one other thing was, you know, it's easy to go out and change your practices externally and leave internal practices unchecked. So that was one of our challenges, ensuring that internally we have a shared understanding of gender concepts and the ability to implement gender mainstreaming. So we needed to find a way of ensuring that there was consistency in how we implement. So as a result of that challenge, we are in the process. It's one of the things that we are doing. It's work in progress. We are winning some of the battles around it. However, we're not there yet. So to address it comprehensively, we are working on a gender mainstreaming a policy, and this policy is going to be harmonized with already existing policies in the bank. But the main thing is to ensure that these policies, for instance, your policies that speak to issues of HR, so we will ensure that they are aligned to this gender mainstreaming. Any policy around safety will also be harmonized with this policy to ensure that the seamless application of the policy. So what we want to accomplish there also is to ensure that there is no siloed way of addressing gender mainstreaming issues. We're not going to have a special way of dealing with gender in the front line and dealing with gender issues in the back office. So there's going to be harmonization of processes there, but also it will ensure that in terms of our intent and vision, the organization will be holding a similar view. We won't appear as though we're representing 5 DBSAs in one, because unless you ensure that people hold a collective view, there's likelihood that there will be different interpretations of the strategy. So the policy is going to be addressing that. Thanks.
Very true. Yeah, you can certainly see how that can unfold. Thank you so much. Well, this has been a really robust discussion, and so I'm going to ask you all one last question so that we can get some Q&A in, and I ask you to do your best to make it one sentence or so, because it's a simple question. It's, what advice do you have for DFIs on this call who may be listening and thinking about implementing gender finance or women's economic empowerment? Very quickly, we'll start with, we'll go around the room again. OT, go. What would you say?
I would just say, don't just focus on funding, providing funding. Focus rather on other support mechanisms that will enable women to stand up for themselves.
Excellent. Theresa, one word of advice. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, for me, I think the advice I would just give is innovate and leverage on partnerships. So a lot of DFIs are in the space, wanting to do one thing or the other, reach out, collaborate. You could do more that way, really. And I think it's helped us, and it would help, people who want to go that route.
Terrific. Thembi, one short word of advice.
For me, the short one would be that it's not a numbers game. It's really about ensuring that at design phase, right at design phase, your targeting is gender disaggregated to ensure that by the time you get to evaluating for impact, there is really alignment in terms of your activities, but the activities that you're focusing on in financing. And it would ensure that you're not gonna just say it's 300 businesses, female-owned businesses that have been financed, but you would be meaningfully saying to us, it's 300 businesses owned by women, and this is how the lives of people have been impacted by these businesses. And it's basically going to ensure that you align yourselves to the gaps, the actual gender gaps that you're trying to address, whether it's teenage pregnancies that you're addressing, right? If you deal with it right from a conceptualization and design phase, you will then be in a position to demonstrate the impact that you would have made. So it's not really a numbers game, but it is a planning exercise and a commitment.
Terrific. Thank you. I'd like to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. So I'll ask Yasmine if we have any questions at this point that have come up.
We do have a first question on how the different panelists have approached M&E questions and the monitoring and evaluation of gender-related work. It's been touched slightly, but maybe one of you could go into a little bit more detail. I don't know who feels inspired by the question.
I'd like to toss it to Theresa, because I would really like to hear, I mentioned the importance of sex disaggregated data in the beginning, and you're working across multiple levels to show numbers and concrete data. So in terms of your M&E, maybe why don't you take this one?
Okay, I'll try my best to take it. So what happens is, so first of all, the data, we ensure that we have the data correct from day one. So it's very easy to know where we are at every point in time. But then going a step further and doing the M&E, we have a team basically that handles, focuses on measuring the impact. So yes, it's not just about the numbers like Thembi said, but what is the impact per household, in the businesses, what are the key focus areas? So we're not just funding women, but we're funding women in these sectors, which are key sectors that would like to see a lot coming from. So it's really a detailed exercise that's done periodically. They spool the data, they visit them, they actually even go to the sites, like they go ask either through questionnaires, through visits. So you have the data and they're able to basically write on that data to get information specifically to measure the impact of the funding. And this all comes together in reporting, and we basically can see in a snapshot in a report and how well we're doing with the funding that has been given, besides the volume, besides the numbers, but the actual impact, to that segment, and then of course to the society as a whole. I don't know if this answers your question, but I guess I'll just say in a nutshell, getting the data from day one, and then taking a second level step to mine that data, and also kind of go a step further and do an M&E to actually measure the impact of the funding that has been given with the data that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Another question that we would have is maybe a little bit similar to the one you asked Kathleen at the end to our three panelists on what their main advice would be. The question there is, if you had to do something differently, if you could go back a couple of years in the past, what would you do is there one thing that you would do differently and that would really retrospectively would have made the whole process easier? So if you keep it short, maybe the three of you have time to answer that one.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
I would say if we had to go back, we'd start by engaging stakeholders first. Instead of saying money is available, come and apply for funding. Would go to the women, would go to communities in the villages, would go to banks, most importantly, would go to insurance companies, would start there, tilting the ground in favor of women. You know, opening a bank account in my country is not really easy. They will need this and that from you. And right now we've managed to get banks to lessen the requirements a bit. And as they do that, more women are coming up. They're opening bank accounts, they're having credit profiles, and they're being able to be assisted throughout the financial industry. So I would say, yeah, would start there first instead of saying, here's money, come and apply for funding for your business. Because it takes more than just a loan or a guarantee for one to meaningfully participate in the business, in the industry.
Powerful.
If I may as well.
Sure, yes.
I think for us, if there were anything that we would do differently, it would really be the realization that infrastructure, yes, improves the lives of people, but it doesn't impact people similarly. And what we would then do, if we were to go 20 years back, would be to ensure that if we were building a road in any rural area, we would have to look at the interests and the needs of the different genders and ensure that we address those. Because sometimes you find that we have financed infrastructure that was meant to uplift communities, but you'd find that women have not used that infrastructure purely because issues of security had not been taken into account. And so what this gender mainstreaming has opened our eyes to is ensuring that we ask the right questions about who is the infrastructure intended for and how is it going to impact them. So really, if we were to go back, would be to ensure that the interests of all stakeholders, the interests of all beneficiaries or intended beneficiaries are taken into account.
Thank you.
Okay,
Theresa, any thoughts? Yeah. And then we'll have to, I hate to stop this discussion, but please, you contribute and then we'll, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be quick. I think for me, if we could probably go a step is to leverage more on the partnerships. We are just looking at doing that now because, like I said, we have struggled with sustainability. But you know, in trying to, in recent times, you know, we found ourselves going the route of, you know, a lot more partnerships with other people other than, you know, our development partners who we got our initial funding from. And we found that there were other opportunities that we probably hadn't taken into consideration or hadn't taken advantage of. And this would have gone a long way in helping us, you know, to provide some specific needs for our PFIs that we weren't able to give at that point in time or from the onset. And we're just trying to, you know, grow the portfolio now that route. And I think that if we had, you know, started with the research, we would have done a little bit more research and, you know, try to see some other key partners that we would have wanted to work with, you know, besides our development partners.
Thank you. Great example. So I think we unfortunately need to.
Kathleen, can I
yes,
share a last question?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so in the chat, we are being asked if any of the 3 banks has dedicated credit lines for women. Has any of you gone down the road of saying this product is only for women?
I'll just give a short answer. Dedicated right now, no, it's work in progress. But at this point, no.
Okay.
Same.
And that is the same for us. We don't have any dedicated products, but being in South Africa and having the black business empowerment strategy, so women are part of that. We do address that somewhat, but there's no real intervention. But we are working towards it, and we are working with the UN Women in the Pretoria office to look at gender bonds.
Okay.
But it is work in progress.
Okay. Yasmine, any last questions? Any more that we should be sure to cover?
Yeah, is any of the banks working on the nexus between financing for gender and environmental impact? I know a few institutions are working right now on this link between environmental impact and financing women entrepreneurs. So is this something that comes up in your institution, the like a double priority?
I don't think I got the question. Can you please repeat? Apologies. Sorry, Theresa.
I'm sorry, I'm translating the question from French, so maybe this is a reason. You obviously have a strong priority, all of you, on financing women. Do you also have a priority on financing environmental projects or projects with a positive environmental impact? And do you link both of these priorities? And that will be the last questions, really.
So I was just going to say that, so we have both and they run concurrently. You typically will not see a woman who is in green or renewable energy, for example, having preference over others. So we have two channels and they run concurrently. I don't know if this answers your question. But both conversations are key. Both conversations are like core to our mandate, and we are driving both conversations, but they run concurrently. But we also see that there are a lot of like interconnectivities or a lot of connections between the two for obvious reasons.
Okay.
Okay,
and
maybe nobody else is inspired.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, thank you. And so just to quickly summarize before I turn this over to Yasmine. So the takeaways I've gotten from this discussion today, thank you again so much for just being so open and sort of sharing your knowledge and your experience. But one big headline for me is that there is no singular approach to implementing women's economic empowerment and gender finance. We have three really quite different, they're all holistic in their own way, but no singular approach, no one size fits all. But what I do see across these three organizations is very strong organizational alignment, really from the top, but internal organizational alignment and clarity of purpose. So those two things, you know, the internal alignment with very clear purpose. All of you are very articulate on exactly what it is you're trying to achieve and why, not just the what, but also the why. So food for thought, I guess, to others here, making sure that those two very basic kind of core elements are in place at the outset, because it sounds like it may help smooth the path forward. With that, I would like to then transition to Yasmine, who's going to tell us about ICR's upcoming call for proposals.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yes, I would like to very briefly tell all of you in the audience about this upcoming call for proposals. The ICR facility is a technical assistance facility. Our objective is to improve the business climate. And we have a specific component that works directly by providing technical assistance to development finance institutions. And we organize group activities and knowledge sharing activities like today, but we also work with a selected number of banks with whom we work closely, develop joint work plans, and to whom we provide technical assistance facility based on their priorities. And for the last 3 years, we've been working with 6 banks, and we are coming to an end to this work with the 6 banks, and we are now selecting the next 6 banks that we will be working with. And to do this, we are opening in June a call for proposals that will be accessible on the website of the ICR facility. You can see the address of the ICR facility website on the slide. We are going to ask the banks to send us a list of activities that they would like to receive technical assistance for, with a focus on women economic empowerment and gender lens investing. We would like the majority of the activities to be linked to gender, but they don't have to be only linked to gender. And these banks, they will receive technical assistance from September 2022 to September to August 2025. So I think it's an interesting opportunity for development finance institutions in the African, Caribbean, and Pacific region. The kind of support that you can receive as a bank is very varied. It can be studies, it can be help in implementing reforms, it can be networking. We can work on topics of governance and reporting, institutional gender assessments. Where are you in terms of genders now? What would be the logical next steps to continue to work on this topic? It could be help to develop a policy, a gender policy, or to implement an existing gender policy through an action plan, because maybe some of your institutions, you already have a policy, but it's not really being implemented. We can work on market research, we can work on M&E questions. Really, it really depends on what you want. So if you go on our website, we have a fact sheet. We present the kind of topics we could be working on. The call for proposal is not open right now. It will be open in 1 month. In 1 month approximately, we will be communicating on the opening of this call for proposals. And also just more generally to say that you can find information about the ICR facility on our website. We have a YouTube channel also, where this webinar will be available, and other webinars that have been done in the past and in the future. We have a LinkedIn channel. You can send us an email if you want, if you have questions. Really, please do not hesitate if you're interested in technical assistance as a development financial institutions. We are here to do this. It is our job to support you, especially on gender. We would like to create a dynamic on gender. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Kathleen, for giving me the opportunity. There's an upcoming call for proposals. We provide technical assistance for development finance institutions in ACP countries.
Terrific. So a big thank you to ICR, to our welcoming hosts, and to our 3 star panelists for sharing your experiences today. Very much appreciated. One final word as we see people logging off, there will be Zoom is generating a survey. So if you have a few moments, if you wouldn't mind sharing your feedback before you leave us, it would, we'd be grateful for it, as we can always use, your feedback to continue to improve. Thanks again, everyone, and wishing you all the best on your journeys in gender finance.
Thank you very much to you, Kathleen, and thank you very much to the 3 panelists who have shared their experience. I really hope it gives ideas to other banks to engage in gender. It's not that difficult. It's possible. Others have done it in the past.